Welcome back to my Intro to Rust course. In today's video we're gonna talk about control flow, or if expressions and whoops. Alright, let's start with a brand new cargo project. I just bootstrapped this. It has the cargo tomo file, a single main function with hello world print. I'll just change to 2 spaces, which is my preference. And let's talk about if, else, and else if statements first. Compared to C-based languages, what we changed, this is how you would write an if statement in C. Let's say we have a variable number, which will be 5. In C-based languages, you would write the if keyword, then a comparison, which evaluates to a Boolean in parentheses, like a function call, let's say number less than 5, and then you would open the curly brackets, and this will be the body of this if statement. Here you would be able to execute other statements. And the if statement is a statement in C-based languages, not an expression, so I wouldn't be able to assign it to a variable. Here in Rust, things are simpler. First of all, the parentheses are not necessary. I can just write my conditional statement here. The body functions the same way. So here I can say print a line, number greater than 5. I can also do an else statement. And even if I want, I can do an else if statement, where I would catch if number is equal to 5. All right, all of these will evaluate. Let's test that. I'll run it right now and we get numbers equal to 5, so we fall into the else if. If we're less than, we get, okay, less than 5. The text was wrong. It's less than 5. And in the other cases, we'll get number is greater than 5. This is what would logically happen. And if we test, it's working as expected. Now, this is quite simple and straightforward, almost the same as C-based languages, except you don't need parentheses for the condition. And there is a more significant change here. In C-based languages, we have a ternary operator in most of them. C, C#, JavaScript, whatever. You would be able to write something like, let me see, is true, which is a bool. You would be able to write a ternary on the right side, like this. Number less than 10, for example. In that case, return maybe 5, change this to integer. Else return another number like 10. So this, as you can see from syntax highlighting, is unnecessary in Rust. You can just write an if statement here. So if number is less than 10, you can return a 5. Else you can return a 10, for example. So let's test that. Number is less than 10. And in that case, let's print is true. Another number. It's no longer a Boolean. Just print parse this to. All right, good. Syntax highlighting code up. What do I have? Oh yeah, I should use snake case. That warning is absolutely correct. Just have it. So another number, we get 5 assigned to it because number is less than 10. If it's greater than 10, and I run again, we get assigned 10. This is because the if construct is actually an expression here, and it returns the value of the block that evaluates to be correct and true. So this is useful. I personally find this syntax a little bit better than a ternary, more beginner friendly also. Ternaries seem to confuse newer programmers when they start learning them and they just have learned control flow with if-else, which is somewhat intuitive because it's close to natural language and how people usually think. And then ternaries are kind of confusing for beginners. I'm gonna talk about whoops now. So we have a couple of whoops. We have the whoop keyword we already used. You basically spin an infinite whoop. We have a while, and which while is familiar from C-based languages, and a for that should also be familiar with in C-based languages. But here we have differences depending on the language you're used to in the for whoop. The while whoop is somewhat similar to what you can expect. But let's go through all of them. They're not that complex. So whoop, basically, if I just print line here, whatever line, I would say iteration, number, and then output this number integer. I'll set it to 0 and make it mutable so that I can increment it on each iteration with plus equal 1. Now, if I run this, it will be infinite, which is expected. Loop is basically doing that until you break it. Now, I can, of course, break the loop with an if statement. If number is equal to 100, I can say break, use the break keyword to break this loop. Let's run again. And now we break on iteration 99 because number is 100 after iteration 99. And that's great. Now, let's say we have an inner loop. That's somewhat common. You might have two loops. Let's say this inner loop is also defined with the loop keyword, and it will increment number 2 by 100. And let's break that loop if number 2 is equal to 200. So now what are we going to break essentially? To avoid confusion, we can name loops in Rust. And to do that, we use this symbol and then we can define a name that we decide. In this case, I'll call this outer loop and I'll call this inner loop. And now I can break outer loop here and break inner loop here. Quite intuitive. Let's test. Should work. Yeah, it does work, but I don't output number 2. Let's output that as well. Yeah, we get 200 on each iteration because this iterates 2 times basically before it breaks the inner loop. Now, that's great. Of course, it's very useful for infinite loops or very simple loops. If you want to have a conditional loop, a while is better because the condition is built into the loop body. So if number less than 10 is less than or equal to 10, let's say, print again. Let's do the same iteration, number, and the number. And we'll iterate number by 1. Similar to last example, similar results. We have a flag, essentially, not a flag, a counter, and we increment it, we check with the condition. The difference in while is the condition is built into the loop. This is not different in almost any way to C-based languages. You should be familiar with that. Now, a for loop is more interesting, and of course the most used loop, as with most languages, because it incorporates the most inside of its structure. Let's define an array for that. This is a simple array, 5 integers. And with the for loop, we can say number in array and iterate through a structure. Let's print number this time. All right. Actually, let's say number. And yeah, to avoid parsing it, argo run, we iterate through the array. Now, you can iterate through structures like this. And if you want to iterate through a fixed number, for example, a range, most people would avoid using a while loop or breaking a loop structure, but would rather use a range here. For example, a range from 1 to 100. Or you can make it an inclusive range. This is less error prone because the conditions in the loop are here. Breaks are not needed. No counter variables are defined outside of the loop body and definition. So that's pretty much the basics of control flow, if expressions, and loops in Rust. With this, I'll wrap today's video. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to subscribe to get notified when another video is released. Take care.